Well, I think we all recognise now it's a career-long development and career-long learning. And so it's important for bodies like ours to make sure that we're providing the ongoing continuing professional development opportunities for our members.
I'm Adam Jones. This is the Future of Structures podcast. Martin Powell is the CEO of the Institute of Structural Engineers and former executive of the UK Concrete Society. The role of the engineer is changing rapidly, and the one who is competent is most likely the one who is going to stay relevant. So the Institute is the largest membership organisation in the world that is dedicated to the art and science of structural engineering. So in today's episode with Martin, we discuss how the role of the engineer is evolving and what professionals can do about it. The move toward the performance-based solution and how proven competency is more relevant than ever, and how we need to develop skills to develop a better future and a better world. I really enjoyed speaking to Martin. It's very rare to get an opportunity to speak to someone like him, and I hope you guys enjoy listening as much as I did speaking to him. And without any further ado, here is the interview with Martin Powell.
Yeah, that's fine. Well, actually, I'm not a structural engineer. My background actually was in geology or earth sciences. That's what I graduated in from Leicester University in the UK. And that took my career into the extractive industries, quarrying, sand and gravel, concrete, all the downstream products from there. In fact, I started my career with an Australian company, Pioneer Concrete. I think they're now part of the Hanson Group. From there, I joined Redland, who are one of the large UK PLCs, and that they were eventually acquired by Lafarge. So most of my career has been not in a technical capacity, but running business units within multinationals. That then took me to the Concrete Society as chief executive, and from there, the institution were looking for a new chief executive in about 2009, and I think it appealed to them not to have an engineer, but to have someone with a business background, but someone who actually understood construction materials, and that basically is how I, in a potted history, came to join the institution.
Absolutely. So can you tell us a little bit about the Institute and how they help structural engineers around the world?
Yes, certainly. The thing about the institution, it's got a Royal Charter, charitable objectives, and so its charitable objectives is all about public safety. So our role in all of that is trying to make sure that those who carry on the profession of structural engineers are properly trained, they're supported in their development, so that they can help and ensure we build and design a safe environment for the public who use all our structures. So that's the real ethos behind it. We have a charter to award a licensed structural engineer status. We're not a regulated profession in the UK, but many countries around the world adopt our exam as one of the exemplars of testing competence in structural engineering. So we've got over 30,000 members worldwide in about 100 countries. And the whole thing about structural engineering is it's a peripatetic profession. People are moving around. There are global organizations practicing. So it's very much a benchmark standard of competence across the world for professional engineers. And of course, the big part about this is the learning. It's the learning of what happens in New Zealand and Australia and the UK. It's not about the UK trying to export, this is how you do it. This is about the world of structural engineers sharing what's going right, what's going wrong, what's innovative, and actually sharing best practice.
So how do you think the role is evolving? It seems every industry at the moment is changing quite a bit, and it's probably no different for the structural engineer at the moment.
It certainly is, and I think that's one of the big challenges that we continually have is looking at the profession, looking at the institution, and saying, how are we going to shape ourselves for the future? What's relevant for the profession and the built environment that we work in? And so we're focusing on really understanding some of the major disruptive trends that we're seeing coming through, the new construction methods and systems, city resilience, designing with data. It's all changing the way that the traditional structural engineer thinks about how they add value to their clients. But underpinning that, of course, is the appropriate levels of competence to practice.
Absolutely. And I guess that's where the Institute comes in.
Yes, very much. I mean, the expertise lies less in the institution and in the members. Our role is, if you like, to connect them, to act a catalyst, and to sort of, if you like, turn that into outcomes and outputs and training opportunities and development opportunities. But increasingly, it's important that the institution, in representing structural engineers, is part of these conversations that are going around across the profession. You know, how do we build the cities of the future? It's more than the straightforward traditional structural engineering. It's about understanding space, innovation, and so it's important that we, on behalf of our members, are connected into those sort of debates around the world.
One of the things I'm interested in getting your opinion on, and this is something that's happening a lot in Australia, and it's not necessarily really positive, but there's a lot of low fees for projects going around, and with the low fees, a little bit inefficient with design, because we got to get a design out as quickly as possible and make some money. Do you think what's it like in Europe and the rest of the world with fees? Is there enough for engineers to actually be able to innovate?
Well, I think the whole environment that we're operating in, I mean, I think there are pressures everywhere in the world, but it's what the profession wants to do about, and what the whole procurement cycle, the place of where structural engineering fits in. If you look at it as any product, any service, there is always an attempt to commoditize something. It's how the profession looks to add value into the whole supply chain, and how much that gets taken on board as part of the process. There will always be that race to the bottom, get me the design solutions out, but it's actually where structural engineering should fit in as part of an integrated process. And you can't put any restrictions or regulations or anything around that. It's all about the culture of design. And that's certainly in the UK, we're having, as we look at some of the catastrophes and the near catastrophes, and take stock of how we go about our procurement and our design and our construction, I think there's a recognition that we have to put more effort into the upfront design, and with it, that means that you have to be buying that expertise and that service.
Definitely, and with the extra effort in the upfront design, extra effort upfront, it means everybody's probably going to be a winner in the long run.
Well, I think so, and I'm acutely conscious that from discussions with practice leaders around the world, they recognise that you can't run a business totally on just the traditional structural engineering design. You have to put it in context of a whole package of resilience, of environmental design, sustainability design. And I think what's going to happen, certainly on some of the bigger commercial projects, clients are going to increasingly take a big interest in the design of the buildings that they're procuring. And they are going to demand things that address climate change, sustainability. They're going to be savvy purchasers, and with that will come the drive to actually get the upfront expertise, rather than to say just get the thing in at all costs.
That's an interesting one you bring up about sustainability and climate change. Do you think this is going to have a big influence on how engineers design in the next few decades?
I think undoubtedly it will. I mean, it is coming all the time, and it was driven right the way through the process. The innovation of materials. How do you design with new generations of materials to achieve safety, but also to reduce waste? And I think what we're seeing is more people challenging the reliance on code-based design and more emphasis on performance-based design. Now, that brings a level of complexity with it, but if you are going to have more performance-based design and still keep your safety factors, it brings a whole new generation of competence requirements rather than, and I'm simplifying this, just ticking boxes that you've complied with certain minimum standards of codes. Because those minimum standards of code will apply safety factors over and above what could be achieved but by some form of performance-based design criteria.
Absolutely. Yeah, that sounds very exciting, the performance side of things, because if you're leveraging the power of computers to help do the computations, then the performance side might be a bit easier, and then obviously there'll be huge efficiencies coming with that, rather than having the traditional way of a ton of safety factors put on top of each other, and to the point where it's quite a conservative kind of design.
And this, of course, is where competent, assessed structural engineers add value into the whole process, because you are now looking at a whole variety of options that can be generated by software and computer, but you still need the expertise to actually choose what is the right solution for the particular circumstances. So I think actually it's a very exciting future for structural engineers, provided we're adaptable to the change and new ways of learning and new competence measures that we'll have to adopt.
Yeah, absolutely. And say for the young engineers who are listening right now and they're just leaving university, what advice would you have for them if they want to have a successful career?
Do you know, this is such an important question, and one that I know that that we discuss with our members and with the academic community, because you need both the depth of knowledge in your professional field, but you also need to have breadth in terms of understanding the multidisciplinary environment. Our young professionals are going to have a much more varied and challenging, it's a new generation of thinking. Our young graduate members are saying to us, we want to be part of the institution. We want the depth of the support that we get to be really competent in our chosen field. But our challenge to you is to make sure that we have accessibility to some of the learning that's going across the other professional organisations and institutions, so that we can top up and be broad in our outlook. And that will equip us to have that broadened career as well as the depth in our specialism.
Definitely. And you've mentioned the idea of competence and being recognised for competence a few times. Do you recommend engineers become chartered with the Institute?
Oh, undoubtedly. We have to, but we recognise, we have to, as we see ourselves very much as an international institution of structural engineering. In fact, we are the largest of its type in the world. But we also recognise, of course, that it's very, very important for structural engineers to be in partnership with their local country specific institution. We have to add something on top of that. Because clearly in local guidance, local practices, local learning, local networks is something that is very important to the profession. What we have to add is that connectivity on a global basis. So we encourage people to register and become professionally competent in their own jurisdiction, but additionally look at the value of actually taking our exams or joining us as an affiliate, but encouraging them to be part of our worldwide community, because we think it'll add value to whatever they get from their home institution.
And we've mentioned a couple of things already, but what other resources are out there for engineers who want to become more competent and relevant for the workforce in the future?
Well, the beauty these days is that people have got the message that you don't just qualify when you come out of university and do your experiential learning. And even 10 years ago, at the time I was joining here, there was a feeling that once people had taken our chartered examinations and had proven themselves to be at a high level of competence, in many ways, that was it. Well, I think we all recognise now it's a career-long development and career-long learning. And so it's important for bodies like ours to make sure that we're providing the ongoing continuing professional development opportunities for our members by courses, by further examinations. People become more specialised as they go. In some ways, we talked about young people having breadth, but also in certain aspects, the future will demand specialisms as well. So we need to sort of provide the courses and the special examinations so that people can continue demonstrating their growing competence.
Absolutely. As we wrap it up now, one of the questions I ask all the guests is the next one. So it doesn't have to be specific to what we're talking about today, but in your opinion, Martin, what do you think will have the biggest impact on the buildings industry in the future?
Skills, I think, is going to be one of the biggest drivers of change. Skills, whether that be at the design level or the construction level. We're meeting a world where more people want to be attracted to city living. To build that, of course, requires skills, operative skills.
Absolutely. I have to totally agree with you. Thank you so much, Martin. If people want to find out more about the Institute of Structural Engineers or yourself, where should they go?
Well, the website is the best starting point, istrucd.org. That will find us, and it will give links to our very many members and regional groups around the world, and we'd love to hear from anyone who wants to know more about what we do.
Hey guys, Adam here. Just before you go, one quick request. I would like to learn more about you. In the show notes, you will find a survey that will only take a couple of minutes. I want to know how I can improve the show, what guests you would like to hear from, and what topics excite you the most. If you do it, you're a legend. Thank you very much. Enjoy your day, guys. Cheers, and see you next time.